Hey, everybody, I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here at SF DocFest. For longtime fans of the festival, we've been bringing films from all around the world to the San Francisco Bay Area for 24 years. And it's always neat when we kind of run across alumni. And with this really wonderful film, Flamingo, that you just saw, we're welcome to back. Great to welcome back Adam Seculier here, director. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks, Chris. I'm glad to be here.
And we got a special treat, subject to the film. Mary Phillips is here. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you.
So maybe a good place to start is, making a documentary is, hard work, both on both sides of the camera. What was the kind of, what's the origin story, Adam? How did you kind of hear about Mary and Mary when Adam kind of approached you about telling your story on film? How did that kind of collaboration evolve?
Well, it's kind of interesting because Mary approached me.
Okay.
And so
Nice.
Mary is a friend of my aunt's, and she came to see Tomorrow Never Knows, which screened at the festival a number of years ago. Which was my thesis film in grad school. So Mary lives in Salt Lake City, and my aunt lives in Salt Lake. And my aunt called me up and said, "Do you mind if I bring my friend Mary to your screening?" And I said, "Bring whoever you want." And so Mary came. We chatted. We spent a few days together. And about 6 months later, I showed back up in Boulder with a film that I edited called Powwow. I don't remember if y'all screened that at, you did? Yeah. So also another film that played at SF Docs. And Mary came to that, and after the screening, she said to me, "Maybe you want to make a film about my community." And I said, "What's your community, Mary?" She turned to my aunt and said, "Does he know about me?" My aunt said, "Well, let him know." And so she told me that she was part of the Salt Lake City BDSM community. And initially, my response was, "That's cool. I'm not terribly interested in that film." And then we went to dinner and talked for 2 hours. Just Mary and I were
Oh, wow.
talking at one end of the table, and she told me these amazing stories. And by the end of the conversation, it was clear that I wanted to make a film about Mary, and that her community would be in the film, but that the film would be about her.
Very cool. And Mary, what was it about Adam's film that you saw or Adam's personality that you thought that this is a door you wanted to kind of open and he was the right guy to tell the story.
Well, when I saw Tomorrow Never Knows, my family has Alzheimer's in the history, and it the fact that I watched that film was very moving to me because I knew that I did not have to succumb to the illness if I chose not to. And then the more I got to know Adam, I wanted to make the film. It's very validating to have a camera in front of you and to have people think that what you have to say is important. So that's how it all got started.
That's so cool. And that captures it, so well. I mean, in the sense that, I can imagine it kind of being empowering,
It is.
Um, And so what as you kind of decided that, I love how kind of serendipity always seems to play a role in like the best documentaries, Um, once you knew that this was kind of a journey that you guys wanted to go down together, um, how much of it was just kind of responding to things that were happening in life, or what was the kind of like, collaborative process to kind of how did you kind of just to kind of winnow down things to kind of know what you wanted to share on screen, Adam?
Well, Mary, this was a 6-year project, partially because COVID happened pretty early in the process. So we
Mm,
started filming, was it 2018, Mary? I think it was
Yes.
2018. And that would have been in the fall of 2018. I don't live in Salt Lake. And so I had to travel back and forth in order to make this work. And so COVID, like I said, probably extended the project by a few years. And we shot a lot more. I mean, we shot so much, and it really
We
became
did.
about like like many documentaries, probably just winnowing it down through the process of editing to determine really how best to tell Mary's story.
Yeah. And we both had ideas for different scenes or different ways to shoot. And some of Adam's are in there and some of mine are in there. So it was definitely a collaborative effort.
That's really neat. And you know, if you don't mind answering this, Samira, I'd be kind of curious. Is that so? We don't always get a chance to kind of talk with folks that are in the film sometimes, and we filmmakers know that documentaries, they can kind of take a while. How did you kind of maintain your patience through the process, and knowing that there was obviously a final film that you had in mind, but how did you kind of stick to it with as things kind of progressed over years and things? How did you kind of, like, I guess, keep engaged and be patient?
Well,
Because
I always enjoyed the filming process and setting up what we were going to do and all that kind of thing. And the film actually had like it was going to kind of be like this, and then it was going to kind of be like that, and then we ended up with the final version. So it went through a lot of what's the word, Adam? Um,
Evolution. It evolved over
it
time.
evolved over time.
Yeah.
And then, Adam, you have, for folks that haven't seen any of Adam's previous films, he always has kind of a unique kind of visual aesthetic and approach that you take to each story. How did you kind of determine the kind of aesthetic for this film? Was it, kind of like a personal style, or was it kind of reflected based on Mary's story? How did you kind of determine it? It's just a really neat film.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, there is something of my personal style, I'd say, in the film. Often I have like lockdown shots that have a certain level of duration to them. So there's that's certainly in the work. But there's also kind of early on, I found this way in which the camera slowly moving in on Mary or on whatever the scene was became an interesting visual style in order to kind of draw the audience into her life, into her story, and kind of accentuate, I guess, certain aspects um, of her body or of um, you know, let's say in that amazing, what I think is pretty great scene in the van, the phone sex scene, just kind of using that slow zoom to kind of and thinking about sound in that scene, where it's like, what is the most important thing that of phone sex? It's actually not the image, right? Phone sex is so much about sound. So how do we use sound in order to tell that part of it and use those vans on the front of the dashboard to move back and forth? And I think, one of the other interesting things that developed in this particular project was the way in which I wouldn't call it necessarily like reenactment, but the way in which there's like almost these the scenes sometimes are designed around one of the either like a character in Mary's life or a story in Mary's life, and thinking about how to build that almost in a narrative filmmaking style. So take for example um, the scene in the hotel, which I think you all screened that too, actually, as a short
Yep,
called Really Good Friends. And so like that
we're
scene,
big fans, Adam.
what's that? Big fans. Yeah,
I
thanks.
said we're big fans.
Yeah. So that scene, Mary had told me a lot about Dawn, and I had asked her, where do you and Don meet? And she said, we meet in hotels. And so it became using the room as a way to tell that story, since
Hmm.
I knew that I would never get to meet Don, and having her go through the motion of doing everything that you normally would in that situation with him. So, I guess there's like a variety of kind of stylistic choices that I took, some of them responding to the circumstances of particular aspects of Mary's life, and other ones really like carrying over from my own filmmaking style.
That's cool.
Adam would ask me questions, and then I would just talk and talk to the camera or close to the camera, and then just tell my story.
Oh, that's cool. And Mary, I'm kind of curious. When you first approached Adam about maybe making a film about the community, what do you think your kind of impetus was in the sense of like, were you wanting to kind of like be able to kind of share it with kind of a larger audience or kind of empower people in the audience to kind of be able to kind of follow their own paths? Or what was the thing that kind of
I
initially
think
struck
that
you?
I think that BDSM is misunderstood as purely sexual and mean-spirited.
Mm,
And I wanted to show that that's not what BDSM is. It's really a very caring, thoughtful process.
that's cool. And for those in the audience that maybe are kind of inspired by your journey, what do you think? Um, you know, what would be kind of some of the kind of like next steps, I guess, if somebody was kind of curious of exploring it further?
To get on FetLife, it's an app,
Okay,
and talk to people. And there's an event page, and you can find people in your community that are like-minded. And then
very
go
cool.
to a munch. And
And
a munch is a gathering of just people who get together and have coffee and eat at a restaurant, and they visit with one another. It has nothing to do with an actual kink party.
No, okay,
And I want to, I just want to add one other thing, which I hopefully, and I think we've had this experience when we've been in person at Q&As, which is that Mary's story isn't necessarily just about like inspiring people to get into BDSM, but it's inspiring them to kind of reimagine their life at any age, right? And so, Mary is someone who found a way to kind of like reinvigorate her physical life, her sexual life, and BDSM just happened to be like a vehicle to do that, but that actually like you don't have to be afraid to think about how to like re-engage in the world at any age. So I think Mary's story is inspiring in that way, and that's one of the reasons that I was excited to make the film.
I also wanted to show that the human form is beautiful. And it doesn't matter if you're a big woman or an old woman or whatever your body type is, you are beautiful.
amen. And this is just a really special film on a different level, quite a few levels, and it just Mary, thank you for sharing your story, Adam for creating a beautiful film, and just thanks again for being part of SF Doc Fest.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
having
Chris.
us.
We're so
Have a
excited
great day,
to be
guys.
here again, and uh, we're sad that neither one of us can be there in person this year.
Well, that's what's neat about the kind of virtual experience. We get a chance to do a little bit of Q&A, and so it's just neat to kind of be able to connect with you guys in this way.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Take care, guys.